Vince,
Yeah.
I think it's time. Are you ready for rapid fire?
Yeah, I may have put the Marcus Freeman one too far down on the list, the demeanor on the sideline, but
Okay.
because everybody's talking about that, but I'm gonna hold off. But
Interesting.
I am
Interesting.
excited to talk about these. That's for
Well,
sure.
we're going a little bit different route with our rapid fire tonight. One, it is all Notre Dame related and predominantly related to the game Saturday night. And two, instead of just like our traditional questions, we're just tossing out topics and it's going to be word association, I guess,
Yes.
whatever comes to mind
Whatever. And I love
kind of
these.
thing.
I love these.
By the way, before we start, Brian NY with a super chat says the post-game presser was embarrassing. Zero answers. There really weren't. I think we saw a more emotional Marcus Freeman than we have probably seen in a while. He definitely was a guy who didn't have all the, like a guy who seemed like he had all the answers most of the time was looking for answers more, I think,
Yeah.
both the other night and even sometimes today, sometimes at his press conference.
Yeah. And he was definitely more emotional on the sideline. I mean, that's for sure. But
Yeah.
anyway.
All right. Milton said, did my supercharger get skipped? I don't know what that is. So
I'm assuming he meant super chat, and I'm looking to see if we had missed it, which I guess is possible. So you go ahead and you
like
move
put it back
on.
in. You don't have to put it in with the money. Just throw in the comment if you've already paid for it. And we'll get it up here. Sorry if we missed it. There's
Yeah,
been a
sorry if we
lot
missed
more
it.
chat activity tonight.
Yes,
A lot
there
of people
has,
in here tonight.
which is great.
So,
We love the activity.
yeah. All right. So it's word association. We'll toss something out and we'll just kick it around. Starting off, the topic is this season for Notre Dame.
If you would have told me on October 17th that Notre Dame would be sitting 3-3, I'd have told you were crazy. With the schedule that they had, the opponents that they had at home, the opponents that they've had on the road, I'd have told you that you were nuts. I would have said, okay, I'll give you Ohio State as a loss. Show me two other losses. And I would have fought you tooth and nail for any of the other 5 teams that they played that Notre Dame would lose to. I'd have fought you tooth and nail. And obviously I would have been wrong. And that is this season has been a huge disappointment. It has been a huge disappointment. I have never been this wrong about a season as a whole than I have been about this team this year. Yeah. And I'll be the first one to admit it. And we've seen flashes of what I thought they could be. And even after Tyler Buckner went down, I still thought that they could win a bunch of games. And they barely beat Cal. And they obviously lost to, like your words, a tomato can in Stanford. Right. It's been embarrassing and it's been disappointing and unacceptable, to be honest with you.
Yeah, it has been just dumbfounding. Like when I look at what has happened so far this season, I have to go all the way back. 2016 was shocking to an extent, especially considering they were only 4 years removed from playing from a national championship. But that 2007 season with Charlie Weiss, and like after the loss to Marshall this year, Marcus Freeman said something, and it wasn't quite to the extent of like Charlie Weiss in 2007 after they just got waxed by Michigan, saying we've got to go back to training camp because we're not doing anything right. Fundamentally, we're all those kind of things. But there are a lot of those issues going on with this team right now. They're very basic, fundamental things. So, like, if Marcus Freeman wants to talk about execution, he can, because they're not executing because of the fact that the preparation appears to be flawed, and the practice, whatever the gameplay, all these things are flawed. It is just dumbfounding to see this team sitting at 3-3 after watching 5 consecutive teams win double-digit games. And again, it's not just that they lost. So I don't want to hear about it's a lack of talent and all those things as we've talked about.
That's ridiculous.
Because the 2 teams they lost to are buried behind Notre Dame in the recruiting rankings year in and year out. For that's part of why Stanford is where you fallen to where they are right now. They have some guys here and there, but they're nowhere close to where Notre Dame is in the recruiting rankings. And neither is Marshall. So it's not about not having talent in those two specific losses, especially after you went toe to toe with Ohio State.
Right.
in the opener,
Absolutely. Absolutely. And Notre Dame's trying to close the gap from a talent standpoint with, the Georgias, the Alabamas, the Ohio States, the Clemsons, and all of that. From a talent standpoint, they are doing that on the recruiting trail. And nobody can really argue that. I think Notre Dame's number 2 right now. I think that's the last thing I saw after Jeremiah Love committed.
And look, John is saying right now, 90% of the problem is Reese Pine. Pine is literal garbage, noodle arm. He wouldn't even be on Notre Dame. I don't buy that, because 3 games in a row, the guy was completing 72% of his passes. Now, was he rocket arm downfield? No. Is he a 3-star guy? Yeah. And, part of that is on Tommy Reese, and part of that is on Brian Kelly as well, for who they recruited at quarterback.
Absolutely. No question about it. I mean, you need to recruit a starting quarterback in every class.
For being Drew Pine, because Drew Pine is doing everything he needs to do to try to be ready. Now, were there deficiencies that we saw in one game? Yes. Were there deficiencies we saw in the first half against Cal? Yes. But the other 2.5 games prior to this, that kid played lights out. And I was amazed at what we saw the last 2.5 games.
Absolutely.
So this is a big regression. But, is the real Drew Pine the guy that we saw against North Carolina and BYU, or is it the guy we saw 2 nights ago against Stanford? I guess that's going to be determined, because there's a lot. Yeah, I mean,
it's both.
I didn't think that we were going to be seeing big ebbs and flows after what we saw from him in those 2 games, though.
Absolutely agree. There's a happy meet, like the real. It's like, where the real Drew Pine, please stand up.
Right.
Like, it is somewhere in between there, in my opinion. Right.
Yes.
And I gave him all the props in the world for what he was able to do the last 2 games. And then this game, it was a valley. There is no doubt about it. But I think his actual talent level is someplace in the middle. That's why he was a 3-star quarterback. And, somebody said, well, Kelly's gone. You can't blame him. Well, you can blame him for the depth chart at quarterback right now. You can, because he was here when they were recruited. Okay. Right. So that's Tommy Reese. He's the primary recruiter of the quarterback room. And it's also the head coach, right? They have a terrible quarterback room right now. Or not terrible. That's mean. They don't have a terrible quarterback room, but they're not recruiting starting Division I quarterbacks every cycle. They're not stacking quarterbacks like other big time programs do.
Right.
That's the problem.
They don't even have a quarterback in the 23 class. Like they're like, okay, let's get this one big gun, and then we'll take a couple other guys, because the big gun is going to be our guy. And, these guys will kind of be our fallback. Whereas programs like Georgia, Alabama, Ohio State, now Ohio State has obviously benefited from some transfers, but, obviously Joe Burrow came from there too. Like you said, they are stacking the talent. They're having them compete for the job, and the guy who loses the job just transfers, and then they go recruit another one to take his place.
That's what you have to do.
Need, rather than this big disparity.
Yes.
Yeah, that's right.
That's what you absolutely have to do, and you can't be worried about those guys leaving because they're not playing. You want guys to come in and think that they're the best and that they're going to compete for that starting job. Right. And if they don't get it, then go ahead. You can go, and that's fine, because we just stacked another guy right behind you. Like, that's what the quarterback room needs to look like at a place like Notre Dame. And right now, Tommy Reese has been bad about stacking quarterbacks. And say what you want about, I can't remember what recruiting class, Phil was in. And then you had Ian Book. I mean, Ian Book was a 3-star recruit, right? Drew Pine was a 3-star recruit. I think Tyler Buckner, if he played his senior year, would have been a 5-star recruit. But then you've got this going, right? And now you have a 0-star recruit in the 23 class.
Yes.
Huge problem.
Let's move to the next topic, and I'll bump one up because I saw someone in the chat just mention it. The scan offense, all the check with me stuff at the line of scrimmage. That was going to be our next topic, or one of our upcoming topics. So let's just do it right now anyway. What do you think about that, Vince?
There is a time and a place for that offense. There's a time and a place for it. And 4 games into your tenure as a starting quarterback is not the place for it. I mean, that's how I feel about it. It slows the pace of the game down. It takes whatever momentum you had as an offense, and it just flushes it down the toilet. I mean, it takes forever to get a playoff. It takes forever. That's not necessary. Are you doing it because you can't call plays that fast? Are you doing it because you don't think your quarterback can handle it? I mean, why are you not conditioned enough? Is this a Bayless problem? I don't think it is. But like, what is the rationale for the scan offense? I can't stand it. It is the worst offense that you can possibly run. And again, there is a time and a place for that. You want to do that for your 4-minute offense where you're trying to, run out the clock and all that. Fine. You can liken that to the burn offense that Mike Bray runs, right? It's boring as heck, but sometimes that's what you need to do. I get that. But that's all Notre Dame has been doing. And that's a huge problem. You have to be able to go no huddle. You have to be able to run your offense at a certain level. You have to.
It's slowing things down, and I think that's part of their problem as well, is they need a little bit more tempo. They get to the line. If you're not going to huddle and you get to the line, okay, they stand there, they change the play. Well, the defense, is changing things as well as you're changing whatever you think that your, adjustment that you're making offensively. Just get up there. Yeah, and that's a big part of it. Control freak. So. Let the player read and play. That's
trying to find the perfect play. They're trying to find the perfect play.
Right. And it doesn't have to be perfect because, again, they've got more talent. And if you've got more talent, like maybe it has to be more perfect against the Ohio States and the Clemsons and those kind of teams, but that's not who you were playing the other night. You should be able to go to the line of scrimmage with a play call, get there, get the play off, and you should be able to beat the other guy, at least 75, 80% of the time because you've got more talent.
Yes, and that's the key right there. You've got more talent. Notre Dame has more talent than Marshall. They have more talent than Stanford, okay? You shouldn't have to be searching for the perfect play. You should not have to be doing that. That is a waste of time and a waste of energy. Let your players play the game. Let them play. Run some zone read to the outside. How about that? Or zone to the outside. Get your speed on the outside. Stanford is big in the middle. They're big. No doubt about it.
Went right at their strength.
And you went right at it. Why? Why would you do that? That just makes zero sense to me. That's why I want to just sit in the back of the room during the offensive play calling meeting.
I'm going to tell you what, Drew Chupp, I'm sure you're a nice guy, but don't come in here talking about offenses that actually work and think that you're going to, cheer anybody up, okay? Because I'm fully aware that there are a million other offenses in this country that look a heck of a lot better than what we see on Saturday. I said it last week. It's depressing to sit here with these night games and watch some of these other games during the day and go, wow, look at that offense. Look at Kansas has a much more creative offense.
And Notre Dame has more talent. Right now. And Notre Dame has more talent than Kansas.
Yes, much more talent than that's just a fact. No, I mean, that was a rebuild. That was a rebuild.
Yes.
And they're running a much more imaginative offense in year 2 than what Tommy Rees is running in his 3rd year as the offensive coordinator.
Absolutely. And if Tommy Rees doesn't think that they have the talent, then Tommy Rees needs to go someplace else where he thinks the talent is. Maybe that's the NFL. Maybe that's someplace else. But if you can't look at this roster and see that you have talent, that's a major, major problem. It's a major problem for me. I don't know what else to say. And the fact that Mike Golick Jr. is echoing that on Twitter, that Notre Dame doesn't have the roster, it's
BS.
It's mind-blowing to me.
Have you seen what the 3 running backs did the last 3 games?
Right.
You're telling me there's nothing there?
There's no
Did you watch
there?
Lorenzo's again, I said this earlier. It's the same offensive coordinator that called plays in the Fiesta Bowl when Lorenzo Styles went nuts, when Chris Tyree went nuts as a receiver, with all that with Jack Cohn setting, all these offensive passing records and everything else. That's the exact same offensive coordinator and a lot of the same guys who are still on this roster. Could the wide receiving room be in better shape?
Sure.
Yes. But don't tell me that Lorenzo Styles, Braden Lindsey, Tobias Merriweather, you obviously have Michael Mayer, Chris Tyree, Audric Estime, Logan Diggs. That's a ton of talent right there. Don't tell me there's no talent on this roster.
Don't
tell me. I don't want to hear it. Because you make yourself look like a fool if that's what you're saying.
That is correct. And the only thing I can extrapolate from that comment from Mike Golick Jr. is that he was teammates with Tommy Rees, and they talk about it. And Tommy's probably like, man, I wish we had more talent. You know what I mean? And that's me extrapolating. I don't know that that's actually happening, but why is that comment even coming about? There is talent on this team, and people can bitch and moan about the wide receiver room all they want, and that's fine. You can do that, but there's talent there, and it's not being utilized.
Let's go to this, because Tobias Merriweather is the next topic, and we saw what Tobias Merriweather could do. If it's really about talent and not the offensive coordinator, how the hell did it take until game 6 to figure out that guy can run a post and win and should have had again another touchdown? He had his guy beat twice. How did it take 6 games to figure out that all you have to do is tell him to run a route and he can run it and the quarterback can get him the ball, if it's not the offensive coordinator?
I mean, I don't even know what to say, because running a post, and now he ran a very good post. He stemmed inside, bit outside, and then went inside for the. It was a really well run. It was beautiful.
There were multiple double moves on that post too, and he still barely broke stride and still had that guy beaten downfield by a long shot.
It was a very well run route, and I want to say that your boy Red said on the broadcast that it was a veteran route. It was the most veteran route that he has seen all season from a true freshman that you refuse to play. There's not a whole lot else to say, man. Like, we've been begging for Tommy Rees to put him in the game. We've been begging for it, and we're not the only outlet. Obviously, all the fans were wanting it as well. Okay, they finally do it, and he scores a touchdown. Yes. He should have had a touchdown on his first one. He should have had a touchdown on his second one, and he did. But what are we doing here? What are we doing?
Said it all along. They were making, just like what we were talking about with all the scan, they're making it more complicated than it needs to be. It doesn't have to be that hard. Now, I'm not saying you can do this with every receiver, but with a freshman who everyone concedes does not know the whole offense, but a freshman who has that kind of skill set, all you've got to do is pick a handful of plays, just like they did the other night. And just like Marcus Freeman said afterwards when I asked him about it, those plays were designed specifically to get him the ball, and he was open both times, and that's what they did. It is something they could have been doing all season,
right,
to this point.
No doubt about it. And it's embarrassing, and it's hilarious to me that the first time he was in the game that he got targeted, it should have been a touchdown. The second one was.
Yeah.
I just
he's got a freak skill set, and he's got to be on the field every game. And again, he doesn't have to be out there to run, motion and, block and do all this stuff, but he needs to be on the field so that when opposing defenses see number 15, they know they've got to cheat a safety to that side. And what happens if they cheat a safety to that side? It opens things up on the other side of the field for someone else, for a guy with the speed like Chris Tyree, or, the obvious abilities of a Michael Mayer or Lorenzo Styles or whoever it happens to be.
Don't tell me this team doesn't have talent.
That's, and I ran through the skill guys a second ago. I didn't even mention the offensive line. At least 3 of your offensive linemen are going to play in the NFL. At least 3 guys on that offensive line are going to play in the NFL, and probably at least 2 of your young tight ends are going to play in the NFL as well. But people keep trying to say this is a talent issue. That's BS.
Right. And just name them off. Name them up. Mayer, Tyree, Tobias, Lorenzo, Estime, Diggs. Like, you've got skill talent. Don't tell me you don't have skill talent. Okay. I'm sorry.
Completely agree.
Drunk People says a lot of crazy stuff sometimes, but you're right on the money on this one. Okay. And you've been right on the money with a lot of stuff that you've said today, but
can't double them all unless you want to commit a defensive tackle to one of them. Right. I think that Mayer, Tyree, or Tobias could beat a defensive tackle or even a defensive end, so.
Right. So the problem is it's so obvious that it's disheartening.
Yeah.
So I'll leave it at that.
Right. Next topic tonight.
Okay.
Marcus Freeman's sideline demeanor.
This is the part, and I do want to push back on everybody that was unhappy with his demeanor, or like he wasn't fired up enough, or he was too fired up, or whatever everybody else was saying. My issue with his demeanor on the sideline is that when Notre Dame is on offense, he looks as surprised as you and I do at what is taking place. Every time they panned over to him when Notre Dame was on offense, he looked like he was seeing it all for the first time, like he was surprised at what he was seeing and disappointed, obviously, in what he was seeing. Maybe I'm reading too much into it, but it feels like to me there's two things at play here. You've got the head coach, who obviously has his hands in the defense and, whatever, and the offense is left to their own devices. And Tommy Rees is the head coach of the offense. And Marcus Freeman is, like I said, he looks just as surprised as you and I do as we're watching the offense. That's what he looks like. And maybe I'm reading too much into it, but that seems like a problem to me.
Yeah, see, I'd like to know the real story about
I would
who's
too.
deciding what behind the scenes. Because, as I've said multiple times just on this show, the same guy who called the plays in the Fiesta Bowl is the same guy calling plays right now.
Right.
And by and large, with the exception of maybe, again, the game, things seem to change a little bit in the Cal game and then the North Carolina game. With the exception of those games, things opened up a little bit differently in those games. But we've seen a much more ground and pound type approach these last few games. And again, especially Saturday night, again, misplaced ground and pound against Stanford Saturday night. And they seem to me, like I remember Marty Schottenheimer, that, that was his thing, man, back Cleveland Browns, and he took it to Kansas City, and like he wanted to ride that ground game and just grind you into the game with that ground game and play tough physical defense. And I'm all for tough physical defense and all that stuff, but it's not 1985, and but it's just like Marty was a defensive minded coach as well. That's and like most of these defensive minded coaches, that seems to be more along the lines of what they go to. And like, it's almost like Marcus feels like maybe he's trying to protect the defense, with this kind of gameplay, so again, like, while he's not the one necessarily drawing up the entire game plan, and he's obviously not the one calling the plays, it definitely seems like he has some influence over the, how the kind of game plan that he wants put together on Saturday. Big picture.
Here's what I'll say, and I need people to not freak out when I say this, okay? I am not comparing Marcus Freeman to Nick Saban, okay? My comparison is that they were both defensive-minded coaches, okay? Nick Saban was on the defensive side of the ball. He still coaches the corners, right? He's a defensive-minded head coach. He had success with the ground and pound and play action, right?
Right. For a long time.
And that's what he wanted to run.
Yeah.
Now, the difference, and Marcus Freeman is a first-year head coach. He hasn't had a chance to make this change, right? The difference is Nick Saban saw the landscape of college football changing, and he went out and got experienced offensive coordinator and just gave him the offense and told him, we need to be up-tempo, throwing the ball, like change us for the better so that we keep up with the trends of college football.
But he also started recruiting a different kind of quarterback. Like he was getting much better quarterbacks than what he had.
The quarterbacks he had were very Ian Bookish, Drew Pine-ish, those kind of game manager type guys, right? And then he went out and got those dynamic Tyler Buckner type guy. Now, I'm not comparing. People need to not lose their minds here. I'm just talking about skill set, okay? Different kinds, and he had coordinators that could call games for those guys. Just saying. I get where Marcus Freeman's coming from, but he also has to have the wherewithal to understand what works and what doesn't work in this age of college football.
Yeah. We Are Not Marshall says Reese called a great first half of the Fiesta. That's it. I mean, that's fair too. But, again, different team. They had no running game last year. They didn't have any running game that they could fall back on. But, and I said coming out of that game, and I said after Ohio State and as well that, like the counterpunch, that's still the big thing, and that's kind of a continuing thing. Their ability to adjust as the game, because like what was, did they really make any big picture adjustments, or did they just,
Right.
hit a few more, like you said, they hit a 41-yard pass play that covered up a lot of boogers, from the rest of the night.
And let's also be honest, Jack Cohn is a much more accurate passer than Drew Pine is.
Yeah.
No matter what his stats were for the past 2 weeks, and again, I gave him all the credit in the world for that. Again, Drunk Vigo is right on the money. Cohn is a completely different quarterback than Drew Pine. It just is. And if Jack Cohn was playing behind this offensive line,
but part of that is experience too.
Absolutely. You are absolutely correct. You were dealing with a guy who's a 3-year starter.
Yeah.
Drew Pine's a 4-game starter. That's a big difference too.
Right.
So you're
and I saw
right.
somebody said that, that Reese made Cohn a completely different quarterback. You're right. But again, now remember, they went into last season with a, disillusion as to what the offensive line was, and they were calling the wrong kind of game for an immobile quarterback, and it took them a while to make that adjustment. They obviously don't have that issue with Pine because he can run a little bit, but I just, again, where's the counterpunch? Where's the big adjustment? I thought North Carolina was kind of it. I'm like, do you agree with what Marcus Freeman says, that the North Carolina game, the BYU game, this game, that there's really not that much difference in what they're doing?
From a run game standpoint, there's not. Pass game, maybe. Run game, there's not, and that's the problem, though. You can run into the teeth of some of those defenses. You can't run into the teeth of the Stanford. You got to run outside, and they're not doing that. And that really, they didn't do that against Stanford. So that was a problem to me.
Right. All right. I think we'll wrap it up with this one tonight.
All right.
Last topic for tonight: the overturned fumble.
I think either you or Brian said it in real time, right? When we were watching the game. Obviously, it was the wrong call. I think we can all be on board with the fact that that was the wrong call. Okay. It should not have come down to that call. The game should not have come down to that call. That should have been the difference between Notre Dame scoring 49 and 42.
Well, and let's clarify everything. The game should not have been, like, officiating shouldn't have been a factor.
Agreed.
There were bad calls.
There were some really bad calls, like the hold on Michael Mayer. That was a terrible call.
That's right.
That was a terrible call.
Jonathan Gabrick, I think it is, says the ref shouldn't be the reason you lose. And I completely agree with that.
No question about it.
I'm talking about specifically it goes to instant replay and the decision of the instant replay booth to overturn.
Is that it is clear evidence that the call on the field was wrong. That's the problem with this particular. So in a vacuum, if we're talking about this one play, right? The ruling on the field was that it was a fumble. I think video showed that it was also a fumble, but it was very close.
Right. It was close.
It was close.
Still a fumble, it looked
but I still believe that it was a fumble. That was not incontrovertible. Or that wasn't even a word. It was not clear evidence. Yeah, thank you. It was not clear evidence that it was not a fumble to overturn the call on the field. Whatever the call on the field was, if they said that the call on the field was that he was down, if they probably should have stuck with it.
Yeah.
But you can't change the call on the field based on that replay. That was the problem.
That's right. Anytime a call is made on the field, it's subjective, right? Every official is going to have a different opinion about anything that they see. The reason for replay is to take the subjectivity out of it, because they can slow the play down and look at it frame by frame, look at it very closely. In the replay booth, it's more black and white. You either have an indisputable, as you said, you either have indisputable evidence to overturn the call or you don't overturn the call.
Bingo.
But it feels like more times than not in college football, especially, they're allowing their own subjectivity in the booth to override what's already a subjective call on the field. They're just saying, well, I think it's this. It's like, it doesn't matter what you think. It's black or it's white once it gets to replay. Either it definitely is or you can't overturn.
Right.
Or,
and it should not matter
that's right.
What conference you're aligned with or any of that nonsense. And again, the away team brings the refs, and that's just how it goes, and that's just the way they do things in college football. People need to get over that. That's just the way Notre Dame operates, okay? And when they have, most of the time it's ACC refs, right? But they have when it's a Pac-12 team, it's a Pac-12 referee.
Well, they're ACC refs because of all the ACC teams.
Exactly. And they have a lot of those, right? And when Notre Dame goes to an ACC play, or when Notre Dame goes on the road, they take ACC refs. That's the agreement that they have. So, but the replay officials, I believe, are neutral, if I'm not mistaken. I think that's how it works.
I can't tell you specifically.
So, but either way, it's black and white, and they messed it up. They got it wrong.
I know a lot. Yeah, like the replay officials are independent of at least the guys on the field, but I don't know if they came from the same conference or not.
Yeah, I'm not 100% sure on that. And I think it might be on our cards that we get. But
again, like I just put up the comment from Brian. He thinks they got it right on the field. Again, that's why it's subjective. Two people can look at the exact same thing and think two completely different things.
Right.
But when it gets to replay, like when you slowed that down, again, I get how some people, like maybe you think that he was, because it was very close. That ball, like we were sitting there with the TVs right up above us, big screen TVs, and we're looking at it. That ball is punched out.
Yep.
Right before, like, I'll hold my hand up here. Like this is the leg. So it gets to about right here. So like you can still see air between here and this is the turf. It gets to about right here, and that ball is being punched out, and then the leg.
Yes.
The knee comes down, and it was that close, and so it's just more. I've just never had confidence in college football instant replay. I think it's gotten a little bit better in recent years, but it's still, it's not good.
It's so bad. It's just so bad. I don't even know what else to say. It is just so bad. But,
concur. I think that's going to do it for tonight. Did we get it all out? Did we get it out of our system? Did we?
Well, I've got another show here in 31 minutes, so I'm going to go with no. I did not get it all out of my system. So
I hope nobody else got it out of their system either, because we've got more shows to come this week, and we'll be here for all of it, right?
That's a solid point. That's absolutely right. You're going to be back with Jesse tomorrow at 6, but tonight at 8 o'clock, Brian and I will be talking upon further review. So we were supposed to do it last night. It is 100% my fault that we did not have the show last night. I was busy coaching young girls basketball, and I didn't get home with enough time to properly dive into the film. But I have since then dove into the film, and we're going to have our Upon Further Review show tonight at 8 o'clock. So 31 minutes. So make sure that you guys are in and you check it out, because Brian and I have a good show planned, and we're going to jump into the X's and O's a little bit, but we're also going to talk about the offense and defense big picture. So
Jonathan says he's going to talk so much smack about the Cowboys tomorrow. Bring it on, because the Cowboys were starting a number 2 quarterback.
It's true.
And, once the defense settled in a little bit, I didn't notice the Eagles scoring too much in the second half. I'm looking forward to the rematch.
They had a chance
back at full strength.
They did have a chance, but they didn't complete it.
That's right. And thank you, Tim, as well, and to everybody else. We will be back tomorrow. We're going to have a lot more stuff. So we're here for you all week. We'll be your sounding board. You can vent. You can do whatever you want. If you want to yell at Tommy Reese through us, that's just fine. Marcus Freeman, whoever it happens to be, but we'll do it. Of course, Vince will be back for the mailbag on Wednesday.
Yeah, baby.
Speaking of sounding boards and everything else. All right. We will talk to you then. Hit the like button if you would on your way out. Subscribe, rate, review. Great to have you here today. Hopefully, we have a good week ahead of us. Vince, have fun on the show tonight. I will talk to you Wednesday.
Yes, sir. I'll be there.
All right. Sounds good. IB Nation Sports Talk. We'll talk to you later.